we've got a gang with us today. The lads are out.
يا هلا يا أبا عثمان.
Assalamu alaikum. Oh, I'm on the stream already, mashallah.
Yeah.
How is everyone?
Alhamdulillah. We're doing good.
I was thinking, like, should I join or shouldn't I? And then I saw Farid joining.
Before you jump on now, the gang's out.
You came on to ruin it for me somehow. I feel like
I'm hearing my own voice.
You've got YouTube playing in the back.
Ah, okay. Yeah, no, it's better.
He's shouting as well. He's like...
Yeah, because I was hearing like echoes after echoes. I was getting confused. So, Alhamdulillah. No, it's okay.
Do check out the private chat, bro.
Okay, I'll pull it up.
And jump to like minute number 10.
Let me get past the... Is Asadullah with us? Or is this thing not working?
Yeah, I said that up. He's trying to get his camera to work.
All right, there you go.
I like your setup, yeah, Arfan.
Jazakallah khair.
So what?
There's much more happening now.
I know. Mashallah. He's
Inshallah,
making news.
I just wanted to speak with Yusuf today. Maybe do a stream with him in the coming days.
Inshallah, we're gonna do that soon. So we'll make mention of that now. Actually, so
Inshallah.
Brother Irfan is finally set grounds in Germany of all places.
Alhamdulillah.
Because that's what's being mentioned at the moment. And and so inshallah he's got plans. He's going to start doing dawah in German, which should be very cool. So we're going to.
I'm not going to leave my English channel. I will continue English as well, but like set more focus on the German scene as well.
Yeah. So I think maybe you'll do something a lot more relaxed with your English.
Yeah,
channel,
inshallah.
Where you do just like a random live stream or something.
Like what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Something you don't need to do much preparation for. But that's the lie. Is he gone? I think he's having problems with his cameras, brothers and sisters. If you can't sort that out, brother, you're welcome to put comments in the comments section, and I can pull them up maybe. But yeah, so I've got the video. What timestamp?
10 minutes in.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
Got it working. How you doing, bro?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Finally reunited.
How come we don't get all the cool lighting?
I feel so bad not having books behind me.
Just get one. Just get one book and just place it behind you somewhere. And then
I'll put the Hanafi fiqh with evidences. Behind me.
I was saying that Brother Farid's not got any books behind him either. Where are your books, bro? You've got all them bloody shells. And Brother Asadullah's invested in all that fancy lighting, and he jumps on the stream and doesn't use it.
What do you want me to do?
We demand fancy. No, I'm joking. I was gonna make you.
Give me a minute.
No, I'm only joking. You don't need to worry.
Trying to keep it casual, bro.
What timestamp am I going to?
10 minutes. Wait, how long is this clip? How long is this video?
An hour and 53 minutes.
Oh, my bad. Lala, it's wrong link. It's wrong link. My bad.
Oh, that's not good enough.
Sorry about that.
That is not good enough.
Okay. Bro, you see, here's the thing. We have too many people on here. And now Apos is going to be like, look, they need 5 people to refute me. They couldn't do it on their own.
I couldn't care less what he says.
I want to speak Turkish with him one time just to see how, just to test that fluency level, if he really...
I think he's got a channel in Turkish.
Does he? Okay, I
haven't
put the opportunity to check that out.
You put something into the back again. What's going on, Farid?
Give me a sec, man. Give me a sec.
Shall I continue playing the original one?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
While you find that one, inshallah. What's it like when I do that? Oh, look at that. That's cool, isn't it? And it blocks off his chin. We'll do it that way.
How about they stay silent? How they don't tell anything anyone for a good reason? Because apostasy in Islam is considered the absolute sin. If you are an apostate, you are lower than everything, and you deserve death. Hadiths say that apostates should be killed. People who leave the religion should be killed. What made me think again? Like, if this is the right religion, this is the peaceful, right religion that God gives us, that God wants us to believe, us flawed people, why would He order other people who are also flawed to kill us because we lost faith? And I ask myself, can I really do that? Do I really have the courage to do this?
So, one thing, he doesn't have to do anything. Like, he's not.
He's making it sound like he has to go out there and kill like people.
I know. It's like in the US, for example, the country he lives, they have the death penalty, and people are killed. And it doesn't mean just because you live in the US that you also have to be capable of going and performing the death penalty onto someone. And so this is sort of indicative of this idea or this notion that he's got in his head that this is some sort of vigilante way of dealing a punishment. Like that you are just supposed to, and absolutely anybody, just go out there and then just being like, Allahu Akbar here and then over there and so on and so forth. It's not at all. There's a legal procedure. There has to be evidences given. There has to be witnesses. The person has an opportunity to change their mind. They're given a period of several days. I can't remember. Is it 3 days? I don't know. Maybe one of you know.
Yep.
They're given a period of 3 days where they can talk to someone and ask questions and think about what they're going through. Now, keep in mind, that if someone is an apostate, right, and they really don't believe in God, what's the easiest way for them to escape that?
Say you believe in God.
And what then? No one can say anything. No one knows. Like they can say they do and then go away and then continue life as normal. Yep. There's nothing guaranteed about it. It's not just someone said something, that person's an apostate, grab him, bring him over, let's deal with him, and then like the guy doesn't even get a chance to explain himself or change his mind or anything. There's nothing in concrete. The person doesn't believe in God, so they don't even believe they're going to get a punishment for lying about it. And then they don't even they can continue to live in the country and just go about their business and live their life. And you can't spy on them. You can't like peek through the windows at night to check they're praying. Like you can't do any of that. Why? Because all of that's forbidden. You can't gossip. Even if someone tells you that they've apostated, like what can you do with that? Because then you go and you say, oh, this person said it. And then he says, no, I didn't. He's lying. What do you do then? How do you move forward from that? If you've got no evidence, the person who's brought the accusation forward looks like a liar, looks like someone who's spreading mischief, and then it falls on them. So, like, even if you hear someone say it, there's like a huge motivation just to not say anything, because it's unless you've got your evidences, unless you've got explicit declaration, and the person is open about it. No, and the whole point of this, and so he's going on about it because this is also a thing that other people have brought forward. It's like, well, truth prevails in the end. Well, if you don't believe Islam is true, but yet you see Islam spreading, you think as a non-Muslim that Islam is silly, yet you still see people embracing it. Even within your own worldview, people are not led by reason and rationality alone. People go everywhere, and we have the same understanding that not everyone is led by reason and logic, and people can become Muslim because of irrational reasons, and people can leave Islam because of irrational reasons too. And this, like, there's nothing about a person that says that if they're exposed to truth that they'll accept it. How do you know that? Because of the varying opinions all around the world. We've got examples of things like Nazi Germany, the place where he lived, where Irfan currently lives at the moment, where people in mass accept.
I'm not living in Nazi Germany.
In Germany. You're not living in Nazi Germany, but you are living in Germany. Forgive me. Jazakallah khair for the correction. But the point is that many people just fell in line with this. So is it true that people, if exposed to the truth, will just accept it? No, it isn't. So what's the point of this? The point of it is it's supposed to offer some sort of barrier from these things that drag people around, that are led by their gut, by their heart on a shoestring. Someone says something and everyone goes into an uproar. You see these speeches of Hitler talking when he's giving his speeches. Everyone's screaming, everyone's roaring, everyone's very passionate about it. Why? Because the human being isn't necessarily someone who's just led by logic and reason. That rhetoric This is all over the modern political scene. You look, the US is a great example of political divide. You've got this huge division, and it's increasing over the past few decades, where the right and the left used to have a lot of political overlap. Right now, they don't. Right now, there's a chasm between right and left wing, or between what do you call them? That's the light. Is it Democrats and Republicans?
Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, the thing is too. Before you go on, just want to clarify that when people when they say liberal, for some reason we have this strange, in the Muslim world especially, people think liberal just means Democrat, and it's like, no. There's liberals, there's progressive liberals, and then there's conservative liberals. Conservative liberals are Republicans. That's why they call it. So.
Yeah, and just I remember when I was growing up, I actually was at the Democratic Party, which is the liberal party of America, so to speak. They were as left as the Canadian. They were as left as the Canadian Conservative Party. So it's like, even if you want to consider them, they're the liberals of America. It's like, well, there's just so much. It doesn't mean anything. Like, I don't like the words conservative. Because, like you said,
it's funny because there's a lot of Muslims online who think that like the conservative party of the United States aligns with Islamic values. And I'm like, no, bro.
Yeah. Like, they're liberals in the sense of what a liberal is. They just differ on what the definition of harm is. That's where it all comes down to, And so they're no less liberal than any other secularist.
Yeah,
just their definition of harm.
It's a different method.
Yeah, their definition of harm sometimes overlaps with what we consider to be revealed, revelation. Revealed revelation. There's a good adjective for that one.
So yeah, what were we talking about? So this is about apostate prophet thing. Yeah, I just came up here because people invited me. This is like, so if he starts going bragging about this stuff, I'm like, yeah, Apis, you got a lot of subscribers online, but in real life you have zero.
I just came because I saw Jake was getting off, and I said I can join in since no one else is around, and so Jake said, well, yeah, Zach's Turkish, so he can.
And now there's a whole gang of us here.
I'm special.
I'm special. I think Yusuf was feeling lonely, and he just put a link up in the group, and me and Arfan were like, "What's this?"
Yeah.
Yeah, there was about 1 million messages on that group chat as well. I'm like, I can't follow. And voice notes, bro. Why are you sending voice notes when I'm live?
My bad, bro.
I can't listen to them.
So yeah, actually, I was actually trying to get you to see that video, which I linked you through in the private chat. And then I had no idea that you were doing this. And I wish that you watched the video before doing this, but I guess now we can all watch it together because what he says in the clip is quite interesting.
What's the timestamp?
10 minutes.
Jake says, as soon as I left, everyone comes on. Are they trying to send me a message? Sorry, bro. No, it was because there wasn't a link out before you left, and then you left, and it motivated me to invite people. What timestamp? 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yep.
Exactly. Bang on.
It's a bit in there, yeah. So this is about him. It's about him speaking about morality, which is very important because it feels like most of his content is about that, right? Yeah,
well, this is whenever I've had a conversation with him on Twitter, and I'm a bit gutted that his old account got blocked because I had a lot of conversations with him about morality on there, and it feels to me like he's changed his position since then, but he's acting like he hasn't, and I get sick of talking to him because he doesn't speak clearly. It's like you say, well, you've given these certain propositions here, which suggests that you sound somewhat like an error theorist. Like you're saying that good and evil is false. You're saying that,
but like the one comment he once responded to you or someone else where he said like there is no objectivity and morality, so there are no rules. So I think more that that's what he's doing. Like he's not seeing any rules to what he has to say, and if he can contradict himself or not, he just doesn't care, and he just says what works out for him better.
Yeah, exactly.
Particular situation.
Let me tell you, Apis' methodology is very simple. If he gets caught out by a Muslim then he changes his position. That's his motivation. He doesn't want to be wrong. If a Muslim proves him wrong, he can't. That his inferiority complex takes over, and he goes, "Okay, that's not what I said." I've never seen him once admit to a Muslim that he was wrong, or that he was an actual criticism was there. I mean, Farid, you've done like what? How many 100 videos or something?
50.
And not even one point he can't even acknowledge.
I can't recall. However, he was very open with Armin and like flip flopped on incest in like 10 seconds, and acknowledged being wrong, about that. But he never did that with a Muslim, unfortunately.
Yeah, that shows academic, dishonesty there. Because I mean, look, even the most ridiculous critics that we have. I mean, I've seen you even apologize for something that you've done wrong, that you made a mistake on. And I think even Yusuf and myself, we've apologized. Whenever we make an error and it's pointed out, okay, we go fine. It doesn't matter how stupid the person is. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
I made a mistake in this stream. I thought that Bart Ehrman was a believing Christian, but apparently he's not. So it happens. It's one of them.
I'm trying to find the comment of Apus because it just summarizes his methodology. I think if
I've got it here.
Okay. You can just show. I think that's in just one sentence. You know how he thinks.
Bro, he's gonna be so happy just watching this. I can't believe 5 guys came together, to critique my deconversion.
This is better than me going to 5 guys.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because so here he's conceding that he's said that right and wrong are meaningless.
Yeah, read the first one and then the second one. Subhanallah.
So, and you get, and yet your whole channel is a mixture of moral judgments about Islam.
Is it so? Because right and wrong are meaningless does not equate to no rules. Okay, well let's assume that that's correct, but then the rules would still be meaningless.
Yeah, they wouldn't be associated with good or evil.
Yeah. So
what it falls down on is like some sort of Thrasymachus morality, that right is basically whoever can might is right. Because if it's not, because he in the conversation with Mohammed Hijab, we're doing this now anyway. You were trying to get me to do the whole morality thing, and I said I got no time, and now it looks like we're doing it. But so in the discussion he had with Mohammed Hijab, Mohammed Hijab was asking him a question about, well, do you believe in objective or subjective morals? Now, the context of the discussion was meta-ethics. And what he was referring to, he used the word objective, subjective, but what was being discussed is moral realism or moral non-realism. Basically, is it objective in the sense that is there a standard by which everyone can be judged by, regardless of opinions, or is morality rooted in the subject, rooted in people? Now, even as a moral nihilist, yeah, if you're an anthropologist and you're looking at the world, you see there's moral systems. You see people use the words good and evil. Now, as a moral nihilist, how do you explain that? You would say, well, these are just their subjective opinions. By pointing that out, you're not saying anything about meta-ethics. You're not saying that, because this is their subjective opinion, that means that's what is the foundation of good and evil. No, there's no inconsistency in pointing out the subjective nature of moral systems in the world while being a moral nihilist. Because this is on 2 different levels. This is on the level of anthropology, where you're like, well, there are moral systems. Where else did they come from? Oh, people are just making them up. It comes from them. They're putting it out. But that doesn't mean, because moral subjectivism is the claim. It's a claim about meta-ethics, that what is good is a personal thing. That is what good is. That's there is something called good, and that this is personal for each person. If one man comes along and he says it's okay to slap your cow on a Friday morning, and he thinks it's good to do so, then insofar as he thinks it's a good deed, then he can go and slap his cows all day long. Someone down the road says, I know it's a weird example, but it gets the point.
Where are you getting this? Like what?
So it's random. Someone down the road might really not like people slapping cows. You know, they might work for PETA. You know, they're avid animal rights activists, and they're like, no slapping cows, no slapping cows. Yeah, and for them, within moral subjectivity, they would be justified in that because what they consider wrong is rooted in them, and that's the sort of the meta-ethical claim. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't describe moral systems as being subjective as a moral nihilist, and he doesn't seem to get that. Because in his discussion with Mohammed Hijab, he gets into this and he's like, well, you know, there's what should have happened is there should have been a discussion about the separation of, say, normative ethics or like ethical systems like utilitarianism, error theory, moral subjectivism, moral objectivism, which there are many, and then meta-ethics, which is broken into two categories, which is moral realism and moral non-realism. And then the other things all sort of fall into one of the two categories. Some of them are not so clear. Like there's arguments about whether moral relativity, for example, falls into moral realism or moral non-realism. There is a discussion about that. And some people, you might hear that and just jump to the conclusion that it's just moral non-realism. But there's a good case to say that it isn't. But there is a discussion. I'm not saying one's right either way, but within the philosophical community, there is a discussion about this. It's not clear cut. Nothing ever is in philosophy. They're always discussing everything to the ends. And he doesn't, like, he talks about these things like he barely has a rudimentary understanding of them. And it's frustrating because you're trying to talk to him about ethics, about morals. Like, what is it you believe? The majority of your critiques against Islam are moral critiques. Tell me what your standards are. What he does is he goes, oh, well, you know, just because I say this, it doesn't mean that I'm a moral nihilist. I could be this. I'm not bothered about what you could be. Tell me what you bloody are.
He doesn't know because he doesn't even know basic terms. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand basic terms. Again, he's trying to cover for an inferiority complex in ignorance, right? He has to present himself a certain way. Apis' position is very clear. Whatever the anti-Muslim one is, and whatever that is, I'll make up a term. I think we all
agree to that.
You know, and then that's what it is. You know, I don't follow either of those positions because if I do, then I have to admit I'm wrong to you. That's basically his position in a nutshell. That's it. That's literally it. I mean, he.
Well, that's the impression I get. That's the impression because he really doesn't want to concede to being a moral nihilist because he just made a video. He just made a video saying that he wasn't one. So he can't now go, oh yeah, I am, because he just looks stupid.
If moral nihilism was something that we accepted, he would reject. If we like basically anything that we accept or that we find that's wrong with his ideas and we point out contradictions and stuff, he will move in the other direction. That is the whole point. That's what I'm trying to say. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just moving away from us. He's trying to get around the criticisms because he doesn't know how to deal with them. That's what a moron does. And someone suffering from what is it, Dunning-Kruger effect. If you had the Dunning-Kruger effect definition, recent dictionary, his picture should be right there next to it.
Yeah, and his picture should be at the peak, at the beginning. Like his picture is at the pinnacle of that.
And that's why I think like the right way to deal with Apis, and I think it's the way like the brothers are dealing with them as well, is just taking it like with humor and just like pointing out the inconsistencies and don't take it very serious like we are doing right now.
Yeah, but this is the thing as well. So one of the most it's funny because whenever I get comments from people that are his subscribers, it's very rare that you just get someone who's like, oh, by the way, hey, I'm an AP fan, and this was a reasonable thing, blah blah blah. It's always like, oh, well, like just cancer. And like I haven't watched. I'm gonna watch the video he's done on me because I haven't watched it yet. But I went through the comments just to see what's going on here, and it's just cancer, like from beginning to end, like constant cancer. And then you might have a little sprinkle of someone who's like half genuine in the comment section, but for the most part, he's just like bringing people about that are similar to him on his wavelength at the beginning of this video that we've been watching. That just it's aggravating.
And it's no different than Trump fans.
Yeah, and I don't know if y'all know, but like the Turkish population that moved to America, Germany is a very different issue. But like the Turkish population that moved to America, first they tended to be the most secular, the most anti-Islamic, because they were the only people who had money in Turkey to do anything. So You have a very weird English-speaking Turkish population that's not so representative of even Turkey itself. So it's an interesting, like, very subculture of Turks that you have in the West.
Yusuf, play the clip, bro.
Assalamu alaikum, by the way, Smoking Tire.
Walaikum salam. Don't want to interrupt the flow. Go ahead.
We want to see you, man.
I know, it's
when's your
mashallah.
debut?
Look at that
That's
beautiful face. The Noor.
No. Bismillah. Continue, my brothers.
By the way, Smoking Tire has a little gaming YouTube channel as well. So go. Is it just called Smoking Tire?
Yes. And
Yes,
also
we'll check that
other
out.
content. So.
If you're here, inshallah. Which one is it? Morals don't come from God.
Yeah, is it? I don't know, man.
This one?
It's the one that you just had it. You just had it up. Yep, that's
Yeah,
it.
this one. Why can't I hear it? That's because it's muted.
It's muted.
Lady for fun, which is why we will condemn this and reject this and judge it wherever we are. And we would never normalize that. Since we are societies and we keep these morals, which we then give to each other as rules, as authoritative commands, it is quite normal that certain morals like these are universal. In all of this, where is God? If our despair, the hell...
What did he say?
He basically made a circular argument.
that was and to torture an old lady for fun.
Torturing an old
And we
lady?
have similar human experiences. It is then quite normal that we find it detestable, wrong, absurd to torture an old lady for fun, which is why we will condemn this and reject this and judge it wherever we are. And we would never normalize that. Since we are societies and we keep...
So there was an Inuit tribe that used to ship old people off onto icebergs.
Yeah.
That was the thing. You're old? Here's an iceberg. Farewell.
It's not for
And
fun.
then-
Here's a spirit
They're
that
not doing it for
protects
fun.
you from those raging wolves.
If it was for fun, they'd be watching them.
Yeah, I mean, even we don't have to go back that far anyway. I mean, social Darwinists were very much about killing off the elderly and the sick and the Nazis. I mean, that was perfectly acceptable in Nazi Germany. So I mean,
Normalized.
very normalized.
The place that he said was a great place where everyone's really good. And talking very grand overall terms, like, the Western people very welcoming to minorities and blah, 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 blah. It's like you've got a huge blind spot where problematic Western history stands.
It's like he just completely forgot about World War II and the era during that time and prior. Like, the world that we have today, a lot of people take it, for granted, but all of the etiquettes and the rules and regulations and laws that we have are post World War II. Like, if you knew what happened during World War II, you wouldn't talk like this. Like, do you have any clue? Not even just the Nazis, but the Western societies too were horrible in the way they treated people and civilians. Like carpet bombing whole cities, nuking whole cities. I mean, did you not? Torture was normal. Burning people alive was normal. I mean, what are you talking about? Like,
I've purposely put the video quality. Sorry,
it's funny. It's a little tidbit because when Turkey formed as a republic, it actually took that between World War I and World War II European norm and institutionalized it. And it's still like, when you get like MAGA hats, make America great again, it's like, well, that just seems like the normal, the opposition. Well, it's the main party of Turkey, not the one in power. That's their platform. And they did everything that you said. They carpet bombed a whole city in Turkey. They committed massacres in the town that I live, back in 1930. So this is the established secularist Western paradigm that they wanted to impose on Turkey. And you can see that, and you can even see it still today. Like, you might not know this, but like, it's still technically illegal to not walk outside with a European style hat. So that's like, it's on the rule books, but it's not enforced. But like, that's the mentality that they put into Turkey. And
even if you look at, say, like certain, so in the US within the military, they have certain terminology which is very descriptive of their mentality when it comes to going to war. Like when they talk about people who were the victims of drone strikes, they call them bug splats.
Mhm.
Bug splats. And you know, there's people that have been completely innocent bystanders, women, children, the elderly, that have been the victims of this, and then referred to as bug splats. So you can't talk in this like grand way, like, you know, often it's as if you think the West was bloody paradise, like they don't have any problems, like they don't discriminate, like they don't do things wrong.
Yeah, a lot of these they have this like fantasy in their mind that Western civilization was formed by everyone just like getting together in coffee shops and having discussions.
Rah, with the curly mustaches and the monocles.
Let's form a democracy.
Let's do this. Let's enlighten the world.
La Bastille. What is it? So, yeah, that's just. Well, here you can even look at it today. You said bugs, but it's what do they call it? They use the word, this target has been neutralized. They dehumanize the other side to such a degree. They're now not somebody who's killed or died. I'd rather see a newspaper article that says so many XYZ were killed than so many XYZ were neutralized.
Yeah, the language to you're right. Even how one more rant. How the politicians argue about the disadvantages of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan in general, right? What is the first thing they go to? They talk about the millions of Iraqis and Afghanis who've died. No, they go, oh, it's too expensive, or how many soldiers have we lost? Those are the first main points that they bring up. Like, we shouldn't be over there because it's not good for America. Well, how about we shouldn't be over there because we slaughtered millions of innocent people? Like, why is that not the first point to bring up?
Without achieving our aims.
Yeah,
we were lied to. We were lied to.
Yeah, that's a big thing. It's like we were lied to. And everyone's like, "Oh, I feel bad. You know, that's why we shouldn't be in the war." It's like they don't even think about it.
Yeah, and so like that whole techno babble, it's just disgusting to see. You know, it's like, come on, just at least consider them humans that you killed. I feel so much better about. I'd hate it too, but at least you have considered them an equal with you in your humanity.
Yeah. So else is. I've lowered the quality of the video to 144p.
You've improved his image. Don't worry.
Keep these morals, which we then give to each other as rules, as authoritative commands. It is quite normal that certain morals like these are universal. In all of this, where is God? If our despair, the help that we ask for, the good or bad response we get from a stranger, our reaction to their response, and what we learn from this is purely functional and logical, natural, existential, then where is God in this? God is not in the value of help and harm, nor in the obligation.
So when was this? 2021. Okay, so this wasn't that long ago. So he does. So he is a moral objectivist?
Let it play, bro. Let it play for a minute or two.
Because he's saying there are objective morals.
Give him a chance. Give him a chance.
Or responsibility to help and not to hurt each other. God is nowhere in this. I want to address one thing here, which I know David will bring up. When we point out that humans make their own morals and that they... Sorry.
What's underneath that? What's going on, Thomas?
So, just want to an example of what we were just talking about too is in the chat by Sunny Sleep, and I just want to read this comment. Sunny Sleep, today is not your day. Should not have harbored terrorists. And talking about Afghanistan, the Taliban were warned. So this is in response to us talking about how the millions of people.
The death of children.
Yeah. So they're saying that basically it was justified because the Taliban were warned. That's basically their justification. This is the typical, I'm being frank, typical American mentality.
It's similar comments about the atomic bombs on Hiroshima or
yeah.
Oh well, that's funny you mentioned that, because that's something that was all over the social media recently.
Yeah.
Well, that was justified.
You know why it got my attention. Like again is Sheikh Abdullah Al-Ujairi. I listen to a lot of lectures of him and read his books, and he is like tackling liberalism and atheism in the Arabic scene, but he translated the book. It's a book of a Western I have the book here. Yeah, what was the author called? John Hersey, and it's about Hiroshima. And when they ask him why he would translate a book about Hiroshima, it's just because because of the point we are talking about right now. Because like people are thinking the West is like is bringing the peace to the world, and he, with translating this book, he was like, I want to show the people how this peace, and quotations, came to the world. And yeah, subhanAllah, he mentions in the beginning of the book that it wasn't even necessary to nuke Hiroshima because they already agreed to a peace treaty. They just had some conditions, but the West wanted them to submit without conditions. And that's why they got nuked, what wasn't necessary, and other things.
Well, if I'm like actually I think the commonly accepted reason, I think now is, and everyone, I think most academics agree on this, is that the reason that the nukes were ultimately dropped was to intimidate Russia.
Yeah,
that was it.
Well, you know, when I was going to school back in the U.S., you know, when I was actually pretty anti-American in my high school years, being a white American, Anglo-Saxon atheist. But the thing was, what is it? We saved a lot more lives by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah, you got that, didn't you? You were taught that too. That's what we're taught. But when somebody criticizes it, well, why did we do that? You killed a bunch of innocent people. Well, many more innocent people would have been killed had we not bombed them.
How if they already wanted to submit?
If you saw James White on Twitter.
Yeah, I just finished this. The conditions, like one of the conditions they wanted and the West didn't agree to, was like that their emperor will stay like untouched or something. But yeah.
I want to share something here as well. So the art of war, has many principles in it that if they were said by a Muslim, everyone goes crazy and they're like, oh no, how dare they say this? Now the art of war is something very, very popular in terms of cultural influence in the West. So if you look at the translator, Samuel Griffith, offers a chapter of Sun Tzu and Mao Zedong. And the art of war is cited as influence Mao's. So this is obviously its influence on China for one. And then during the Vietnam War, some Viet Cong officers extensively studied the art of war. And then here you have the U.S. military. So the Department of the Army in the United States, through its Commander General Staff College, lists the art of war as one example of a book that may be kept at a military unit's library. The Art of War is listed on the Marine Corps Professional Reading Program, formerly known as the Commandant's Reading List. Commandant's Reading List. It is recommended reading for all United States military intelligence personnel. The Art of War is used as instructional material in the U.S. Military Academy, and is also recommended reading for officer cadets in the. So, you know, some notability military leaders have stated the following about the Sun Tzu Art of War. I always kept a copy of the Art of War on my desk. General Douglas MacArthur, 5-star general and supreme commander of the Allied forces. I've read the Art of War by Sun Tzu. He continues to influence both soldiers and politicians. General Colin Powell, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. According to some authors, the strategy of deception. Deception? From the Art of War was studied and widely used by the KGB. And I will force the enemy to take our strength for weakness and our weakness for strength. And thus will turn our strength into weakness. The book is widely accepted by KGB officers in charge of disinformation. So, you know, this is all coming from the art of war. The art of war is not the art of peace. Like, it's not the art of... And, like, we never claim to be pacifists. We're not these, like, hippie Buddhist monks. Like, there is a concept of war in Islam, and there's whole rules of engagement in that. And newsflash, one of the biggest rules in Islam is not to kill non-combatants, not to attack innocent women, children, even priests or monks that live in monasteries, the elderly, the sick. You can't attack any of these people. You can't kill them. And then you compare them to many of the examples that people bring forth as sort of quote unquote Islamic extremism, where you have people attacking innocent people, attacking women, attacking children. The most recent one that happened in Liverpool happens to be a convert to Christianity, but even then, everyone's projecting Islam onto it and saying, "Oh, he went to the hospital, the women's hospital,
asylum."
Yeah, he went. Yeah. So it's always about taqiyya this, taqiyya that, even though this is a Shia concept and not something propagated by Sunni Muslims. And the guy, he went to a woman's hospital with a bomb, and people are trying to say this is somehow Islamic, and it isn't at all. Suicide is not permissible. Attacking non-combatants, especially women and children, is not permissible. Like there's so you could list all of these things that are non-permissible. Someone stole war booty. Freed, can you remember the reference? The one
hadith,
of the person that went to steal war booty during a war and died, and people thought he was a martyr, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
I remember it was a coat or something.
Yeah, he stole something from the booty, and then he was denied martyrdom as a result of that because he did the wrong intentions. But I would go further than that, Yusuf. And I say this sometimes it's controversial. It's not just about Islam. Is not just we're not pacifists. Muslims are just pacifists. No, we are a warrior culture. We are a warrior religion. And let me clarify what that means, because a lot of people like, stuff. He admitted it. It's and it's like, no, it's the same way with like the samurai or the Jedi, who are popularized in
the Vikings.
The Vikings. No, we have a warrior culture. We have a warrior code of conduct, and not just in terms of military conflict, but also in terms of our nafs and how we deal with our own spirituality. We consider that a war.
Now, notice as well how things like the samurai culture, how things like Viking culture, etc., are like sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Romanticized.
Yeah, romanticized.
Constantly. Like all over the place. Like even you've got the TV shows like the Viking, which is literally just about them going about. People love that.
Yeah.
Nowhere did you see criticisms about Viking culture, like they were this, that, and the other. Like people loved Ragnar Lothbrok. They loved him as a character. They love the samurai movies.
Yeah.
They love anime.
Even like I said, Star Wars. Everyone loves the Jedi. The new Dune movie, the Fremen. They're exactly like the Muslims. They love them. That's what they love. But then when they start talking about Muslims, suddenly we become exceptionalized. It's like, astaghfirullah. No, they don't say that. Obviously, they say, that's horrible that you guys believe in war and fighting. And it's like, yeah, bro. When the war actually comes, you're gonna want us on the front lines.
But the whole liberal institution was put in through war. I mean, that's the thing that has gone completely, under the radar in the modern psyche, I guess, is that, French Revolution and then the aftermath and whatever went, after that. It's just been liberalism and the essentially what is government, the monopoly on violence. That's just who has the right to kill somebody. The liberals. And I'm meaning this in the sense that we used earlier in the discussion. Those who espouse a liberalist paradigm, they have the right to use violence however they want, and they do, and they're not questioned about it. And when the West does something that anybody else in the world would do, the West is impeccable, and the other people, even Muslims included, but South America and throughout Asia and Africa, even throughout Muslims, they can't get away with it because they're not doing it necessarily from a liberalist paradigm.
Yeah, and Brother Faisal, Jazakallah khair for the super chat. He mentioned a really good point. So that even within, like for example, the UK, we have the poppy, the red poppy that's put everywhere, and the notion of the soldier is always romanticized as well, and they're seen as these sort of really noble beings. And they're constantly talked about it in a very similar way, this romanticized notion. And it's not like they haven't done wrong. It's not like they've not been guilty of certain crimes. There's even within the army itself. So you've got the introduction now, obviously this trying to increase the number of women in the army. And with this push, there's increasing amounts of cases of sexual harassment and rape and things like that within the armed forces. Obviously, it's not to say everyone in the army is doing these things, but they're occurring significantly enough for it to be a problem and for them to have to try to figure out ways of resolving these issues. So, you know, I don't know what to say. It's one rule for thou and a different. What's that saying? One rule for me and another for thou, or something.
It's just it's a double standard.
Yeah, double standard.
One word for thou would be grammatically incorrect.
You with your grammatical corrections.
Who cares about Old English?
Carry on.
It's not Old English. It's still modern. It's still modern English.
Carry on with the clip, bro.
Okay.
King James Bible.
We have more to cover.
Oh crap!
We still haven't gone to the juicy part, by the way.
Wait.
I don't want to think juicy and apis in the same sentence, please. Can you stop doing that?
More fun for thee.
There we go.
I point out that humans make their own morals and that they make these morals for functional reasons. Many people then draw the false conclusion that we do accept or must accept the bad morals which certain societies establish or which majorities establish.
Wait a second. No, that's not what we're saying.
I want to address one thing here, which I know David will bring up. When we point out that humans make their own morals and that they... When we point out that humans make their own morals and that they make these morals for functional reasons, many people then draw
I think that clip, I think that part with that weird sound, I think that's when his water broke. Please carry on.
Bad morals, which certain...
So he's saying
again
that many people... What's going on?
Nothing.
Let's... I'm going to try to focus now on the point that he just made. Right. So he just said many people make the conclusion that because... Who are these many people, firstly? Who are these many people?
The ones that I read.
I saw some Twitter comment once and he said something and it's like many people. And so it doesn't follow at all that because you point out that there seems to be something about the subject involved in these anthropological studies. You've gone out into the world, you've done some research, you've gathered your empirical evidence, and you've noticed that DMR is real. DMR is descriptive moral relativism. It's not a meta-ethical claim. It's just a descriptive claim of what you see when you go out into the world. You go out, you see, oh, in India, they have this moral system. Oh, in the UK, they have this moral system. Oh, in South America, they have this one, and then blah, 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 blah. Everywhere you go, there seems to be different moral systems. This is called descriptive moral relativism. Now, it doesn't follow from that, and I don't think many people are saying this, that then because people have different moral systems and because of there seems to be some sort of link between humans making their own moral systems, then you have to accept everyone else's. Even in MMR, meta-ethical moral relativism, they don't hold that. Meta-ethical moral relativism says that what is good is decided by the culture. This gives rise to some problems later on, but it's not that, oh, if you're in the UK and you think X is good and Y is bad, that then you have to think that over there, although they completely disagree with you, you have to think theirs is okay as well. It doesn't follow necessarily from moral relativism at all. What it means is if you're in that society, if you're in the UK, for example, and you think marriage beyond one person is wrong, you are justified in thinking that. So it is good for you in your society. That is good. And that doesn't mean that you have to then say that over there where they have marries, that person can marry 4 people and it's considered perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that the person in the UK then has to say that's moral as well, or that it's okay. That's not what moral relativism states at all. No, the person is justified in saying that it's wrong because his culture says that it's wrong. Now, that obviously causes a tension where you have overlap. So what do you do if you're saying moral relativism is true, then how do you, like, say when you have
how do you value one over another?
Yeah, how do you yeah, and then how do you deal with the conflict that might arise?
He explains it, bro. Carry on.
Does he? Okay.
I was going to answer. I was going to say, you just kill the other one.
Well, that's generally what happens, is that it tends to end in a conflict.
Societies establish, or which majorities establish, such as the Nazis and the Holocaust. But that is a wrong thought. It completely misses the point. When I am arguing that humans make their own morals for functional, useful, utilitarian reasons.
So he is arguing that humans make their own morals. So he is saying here, technically, that there is a subjective element to so what is he, man? Like,
carry on, bro. Carry on. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. But you're not letting Apus speak for himself yet. Give him a chance, Yusuf.
So let me just summarize though so far.
You know, I think what he means, like he says, like when people do morals on utilitarian principles or something, I think he thinks that there are objective principles. If you use them to make your morals, then they're gonna turn out to be the morals. But what he misses is that these principles as well are subjective. They differ from person to person.
But you got to remember at the beginning.
He expands on it slightly later on. Please do carry on.
I'm gonna. I just need to summarize. At the beginning, he said that there are objective moral principles, like, for example, what did he say? Beating up an old woman. It's considered wrong.
He kind of explains that. Not that specific example, but he does explain something. I would recommend carrying on. He has his own terminology. In a weird way, but yeah.
So people are saying now he's a moral subjectivist. No one knows. He seems to be in this sort of superposition, like Schrodinger's cat. So it's not necessarily problematic if he can outline the relations between the principles that he's making reference to, because you can be, in some sense, you can say there are certain principles, for example, that are objective. Like, for example, slapping up an old woman. You could say that you think that that is an objective moral value and that everyone cross-culturally holds that and should hold it, so on and so forth, yeah?
But we already know the answer. He's not able to do these things. He's just saying stuff.
I know, but this is the point, isn't it? It's like, it's fine to say that. But then the answer is the answer should have been well, in some degree, I'm a moral objectivist with certain principles. I would say, yes, these morals are objective. In other regards, I'd say they're subjective because there's a lot of differences between them. And you can take like some sort of like middle ground between several systems and explain why you take that position or why you think these ones deserve the objective category, for example, and these ones are worthy of subjective category. And that's fine. But then you're not saying morality isn't objective. You're saying, no, there are moral objectives. So you are a moral objectivist in one sense. And then in another sense, certain things are subjective.
Okay, so this is what's going to happen, Yusuf. Now that you've said all this, he's going to make a video saying everything you just said. I've said this all along. See, I mean, they just don't understand.
He's not said that.
I know, but he's going to repeat you. And he's going to be like, yeah, and then he's going to avoid criticism because that's his position, is to avoid criticism. That's it.
It works.
The strange thing is he doesn't care if he really didn't or said it in a previous video. Even if you have it as evidence, he's just gonna ignore it like it never existed.
Yeah.
The guy is a clown, man.
But this is why it's so frustrating having a conversation with him. Like, for me now on, I think I'm just gonna keep it.
You have to take it with humor. That's the only way.
You don't have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
That's
but if there's gonna be an exchange between us, it's gonna be I make a video and then he can do his video. And if I feel like answering it, if it's not too absurd or stupid, I'll maybe answer it, and we can have a back and forth that way. I'm fine with that because then I can just like
you can't have that. You can't have those conditions up. You know, too absurd. Can't respond to if it's too. Yeah, what do you expect, Afi? But please carry on. Please carry on.
Okay,
you're missing out. You're missing out if you don't play the rest of the clip, because he gets into it.
Okay, because here now he's this is a claim about moral subjectivity.
Reasons. I am making, but that is a wrong thought. It completely misses the point. When I am arguing that humans make their own morals for functional, useful, utilitarian reasons, I am merely observing and explaining that this is what people do. I'm not saying that people are always amazing and always right, and that they come up with the best rules. On the contrary, it is entirely possible that humans also have wrong ideas, that they delude themselves, and that they come up with very bad ideas, which eventually harm themselves, harm others, or harm their environments. Just because humans are intelligent enough to establish their own morals for their own sake, that does not mean that humans are not stupid enough sometimes to create very bad morals. How moral values and obligations come into existence is one question. How we judge them as right or wrong is a different question. Unfortunately, David also seems to assume that it would normally, without God, not be possible for me to judge the actions of Muhammad, for example, as right or wrong, and that I am able to judge Muhammad's actions as right or wrong because I am, without acknowledging it, appealing to a certain objective morality which all humans, regardless of time and space, have to abide by. That is wrong. Personally, I don't judge 7th century Arabia Muhammad for the child marriage or the slavery. Similarly, I don't judge Napoleon or Genghis Khan or Charlemagne or Alexander the Great.
I'm 100% sure. Genghis, yeah, he did. But I'm 100% sure that he has judged these things multiple times.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
No, I'm not judging them. I'm describing them based on what I feel about them. But it's not judgment, because judgment is objective. And then you would criticize me. So I have to say, I don't, he'll come up with all these absurd excuses to get around it. He doesn't know what he's saying, though. He cannot follow a train of logical thought. Like, he just waffles and he tells people what they want to hear, or he makes up vague claims and assertions that he can wiggle out of later on. This is typical. This is, like I said, you are frustrated, and I used to be frustrated too until I just realized all of this stuff, and I just don't care anymore. But the point I'm trying to say is, like, I understand why you're frustrated, but I'm just saying, like, after all of this, man, like, there's no point. There really is no point dealing with this because he doesn't have a position.
No, but this is the thing. This is the thing, bro. Like, so there are young people, who get pulled by rhetoric. They get dragged along by rhetoric. They don't see the sophistry at play with certain tactics. And he does this. Like, he'll like, in a debate, he'll make mention of something controversial in passing, or he'll just say something and then just imply that that's like the orthodox understanding. Like, for example, the sun setting in the muddy pool. And that's how the Quran should be understood, despite that not being the case at all. And like, people just get simple people, young people that are still developing, they just get pulled along by this nonsense. Yeah. And these are the kind of people that get into the Lighthouse Project, and I've got to talk to them. And
sometimes people, they get affected just by him, like bringing like confusing and complex stuff. It just sounds complex and that he's talking about something, but he's not talking about anything. They don't even understand what he's trying to say, but because it sounds like it's intellectual, they think like he's having a point or something.
There's a point. Look, I agree that at some point, utilizing him as an example to teach others is a good thing, right? But at the same time, I don't want to give him that much credit, not because I simply just don't want to, but because the reason that these kids are so attracted to people like Apis or Harris Sultan and stuff has more to do with
celebrity culture.
No, not just that. No, because again, we're putting the blame primarily on the individual, I think, here, whereas it's really a lack of education, it's a lack of understanding, lack of critical thinking among the masses itself. So, I mean, look,
I wouldn't say that would be a concession that it's on the individual. I would say celebrity culture is something that's sort of being instilled collectively. Yeah, so there's this idolization of YouTubers, of people with big followings. If that person's got 1 million, and if someone says if they respond to a comment, it's like, oh wow, the person responded to me, and they get this sense of awe by the fact that this person has a large following. That, and you can see this with crap, mate. Like, the K-pop culture. What on earth is going on with that? Why is it that millions of people feed into this nonsense? And like idolize them and go absolutely mental if like a bit of sweat was to like hit them on the head.
Yeah, like there was this Saudi girl who ran away to join a K-pop group or something. I heard.
How did she fit in? K-pop. Anyway, so that's besides the point. The point, but the thing is too. Like, say we get rid of, let's say that Apis goes away one day, like he finally gets a job, right? And then like, you know, Harris Sultan, you know, finally gets a job, and like they have to like do stuff outside of YouTube, and then they go. The fact of the matter is, the people who follow them will find somebody else.
Yeah.
Because it's their mentality, it's the problem with their culture and their education that is drawing them to these people. It's the same thing with Trump. Again, I bring him up as an example. That guy's a moron. He can't put together a coherent sentence.
Yeah, but people still follow him. But this is the point, isn't it? It's like, so this is why Americans. I feel the need sometimes to have to make these kind of videos, because it's in the hope that someone who's being led by some of this nonsense might stumble upon it and be like, they watch it, and they hear us sort of deconstruct whatever nonsense he's coming out with, and then they can get a bit of relief from it.
I guess, you know, but at the same time, the fact that they're attracted to that nonsense to begin with is the problem.
Yeah. But this
I think Yusuf means like through this deconstruction, you can wake them up, like leaving this mentality, and
it happens. People do but for each channel, man, bless you, bro. The videos that you've done on there, and Asadullah, your older content with when you were doing the critiques, and you had your little pet monkey, like those were brilliant, man. They were really good, and when you're watching them, like you go through the comments and you see people like are appreciative of the work that you've done there, because they're young. It's not to say that they're stupid. It's not that. It's that they're naive. They're ill-equipped. Yes. They don't know how to analyze these things and to come up with stuff. And they like this guy at the beginning of his life, man. The way he's going on, he's got this very black and white thinking, oversimplification. Everything's like one way or the other, my way or the highway. There's no like sort of nuance in his thought, and when you're young, you can fall into this mentality very easily.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I became an atheist from Christianity just because there were only Christians around me. So if I wasn't a Christian, by default, I became an atheist until and
then you lump everything else with Christianity. It's like, all religions are the same.
Look, I agree with the sentiment that these deconstructions are necessary to an extent. But I am saying that I feel like there's still a gap within our community where we're not providing positive, like for example, Yusuf and I think many of the other brothers here, like, yeah, you have like lessons, like you teach critical thinking and stuff, right? But among many of the other popular da'is, this is not normative. Refutation tends to be the more popular avenue by which to explain Islam or to, you know, get rid of these bad ideas, but we're not supplementing that. I mean, like we're showing, okay, these guys are stupid. Okay, Alhamdulillah, everyone gets proud
we give
of their
fish
identity.
rather than teach how to fish.
But then the moment somebody else comes along, like I said, you haven't resolved the issue. But I'm not trying to, what's the word? Lack appreciation for yourself or even my own work. But I am saying that we can't just keep doing that, right? We have to fill in this gap, because down the line, and we can keep refuting all day long, but eventually we're going to have to stop, you know. And if this cycle just keeps going, we're not resolving anything, right?
Yeah, I think
with every generation, or maybe not even generation, every so many years, another thing is going to come in that the modern culture is now against. That, you know, that's just normative for both Muslims and the dominant culture. You know, as I was listening to a discussion by somebody, like when water is eventually not going to be, so ubiquitous, they might actually attack Muslims for having to use real water to clean themselves before prayer. You know, now that's not a problem, but you can imagine, you know, how backwards Islam is by using real water to clean themselves. You know, so it's a simple example, but it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing with each, you know, subsequent year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think what Brother Asadullah is trying to say, like, instead of only keep refuting, we have to like think about teaching the people new ways how they can on themselves filter out the nonsense from the truth.
Yeah, but I'd say it goes even deeper than that. We have to inculcate a whole new paradigm, you know, because it's you know, in the youth. I'm technically a teacher by training and whatnot, so you know, a lot of this is just what they learn very early on. They go with it, you know. So like critical thinking, you can teach it, but you know, to how many people can actually, you know, execute a pure, you know, logical, critical thought. You can teach it to an extent, but you have to keep reinforcing it, and it requires a culture that is doing it. It's not just a one-on-one thing. And so that it's the what is it?
Yeah, that's it's like I had a conversation with my brother.
I gotta bounce. I'll catch you guys later.
Okay,
I'll keep watching that. Don't worry.
It was nice being with you.
Sorry for.
Take care, brother.
I apologize for going on the rambles.
I have to go soon. Sorry, go ahead.
Yusuf, watch it like fully, and then watch the other stuff I sent you.
Okay. Inshallah.
I have to leave here in a second as well. So, but I wanted to say as well, like, that's basically my point. And we have unfortunately, even among the Muslim youth that we have, it's like they don't want to watch long videos. They don't want to read articles. Like, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, TikTok mentality.
You want to talk about teaching them how to think critically. It's like, but they don't.
This
as well linked to sabr.
But this is I want to. I'm sorry, I'm going to interject.
It's fine.
That's how it's always been. I mean, we have this romanticized image of the past. It's just in the past, fewer people actually went to university. Fewer people actually went to higher levels of education. So I mean, people don't want to do that. TikTok. It's not a TikTok. What is it? Generation. It's just that now we're actually engaged with people who. They're on the same platform now, whereas they weren't before.
So TikTok mentality is feeding something that's already present, basically.
I'm going to inject one more time, and that was fine back then because the common people didn't deal with these complex subjects, whereas today, because of the internet, they're constantly faced with. So we don't have that experience anymore. No offense to.
I agree. That's why I think we need to inculcate a whole paradigm, a whole culture. It's not just
it takes into account the singularity that occurred with the access and
refuting, even teaching critical thinking. Like we can, you all do great jobs doing it, but unless there's a culture in which that is actually actively practiced, it doesn't mean much of anything. And that's something that's more important. There needs to be that collective jamaat in which this is executed.
Now, I just want to make a mention of this comment as well. A couple of comments. It said, stop giving him hours of streams to discuss what he said, because no matter what you said, his followers will just get that AP is important enough for the Muslims to obsess about what he says. So this is one thing. One that's sort of doing a similar thing to what he's doing, where you're just sort of clumping everyone up. And what you have is you've got his following will be in several categories. You've got the vocal active bits that you see expressed in the cancer, which is his comment sections. And you get the silent observers, which sits on the fence and doesn't comment, doesn't say anything, and they just watch. And then you've got people who are like Muslims who go on there and just to see what he's saying and like either hate on him or interact with him in one way or another as well. So they're not a monolith. There are people on the fence, and some people do lean one way or the other. And obviously, we're trying to engage with the people on the fence here.
Even then, it's like this comment's ridiculous for a number of reasons. Number one, the only reason that I objected about that is because the methodology, I think, is not what we need to fully implement in order to assist the Muslim community in regards to their doubts. Secondly, this comment's ridiculous, and the primary reason it's ridiculous is AP is important enough for the Muslims to assess about. Dude, this is our hobby. That's his job. Okay, big difference. All right, I'm not in here because I'm getting paid. I'm here because I have some free time. So he's coming about us because that's where he gets his money, bro.
And when you don't respond to the comments, it's not because he's too important, blah 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 blah. It's because they're afraid of answering or blah 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 blah. So like you can't like with these you're upsetting people. Now there's another part of the comments he says about what he says here and there. All Dawah channels mentioning AP as if he's some kind of real threat. Maybe stop making him important so he doesn't get attention that he desperately needs by using you guys. But the thing is, I'm a tiny channel. I got 10K. I'm not no next man with the silver plaque on the wall, man. Like he's got what, 250,000, more than 250,000 subscribers. He's putting content out there, and young people who are not equipped are dealing with this. I run the Lighthouse service for Sapiens Institute. My job is to give people mentoring and counseling that call up or use the service because they have doubts, because they have this, because they have that. And there's times where people stumble across his content and they're not equipped to be able to like go through it or think about what he said or why it's problematic. And it makes them panic. and then they just sit with this anxiety, and they keep adding things. So rather than trying to find an answer to that question or equipping themselves with the tools to be able to deal with it, teaching themselves how to fish, what they do is they just keep consuming that content, one video after another, without ever really trying to answer the problems that are being presented to them. And then they just sit there with like this huge pile of unanswered questions and, massive anxiety, massive like social angst. And they're like, I can't find any responses. I don't know what to do. And they're looking for it. So, inshallah, when you're watching these videos that I'm doing, I'm hoping that you don't just like see it as a quote unquote a refutation video, but I'm trying to talk. I'm constantly making reference to like reasoning and like thinking about things and how to do that and go through that process. Mashallah, is your little one with you?
Sorry, I have to go. But yeah,
No problem.
last comment. Apparently, Apis made a comment on his community post. You triggered him, bro. You triggered him. You should read that publicly and deal with it.
He can go sit in his anxiety. I can't be bothered with him. But
it'll be fun. Go ahead.
If you read it out loud, he'll get even more anxious.
He'll be like,
I'm not even going to bother. I want to, because it's going to go on a huge tangent then. I want to finish this video.
I mean, look on the bright side. At least you got him away from Googling himself for 5 seconds. There you go. So, who's talking about me today? Let's find out.
Barakallahu feek. May Allah bless you and your family, bro.
It was very nice talking with you.
We'll see you again, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right, we're going to try and get through this video now.
Should I just say something? The thing you mentioned about the youngsters, that's why I even made a video about this. That's why I always say like the importance of building the things we are holding to and our beliefs on a strong foundation. Just don't try to tackle every secondary issue on its own, but first ask yourself like the fundamental things you believe, like the existence of God, that Islam is the right religion. Do you have enough proof that you are convinced of these matters or not? If the answer is no, then you should start there first instead of tackling any secondary matters. And subhanAllah, what I think there is like, I explain it always with the law of non-contradiction, like two assumptions that oppose each other cannot be true on the same time. So if you start checking the things you're believing, like God's existence and the truth of Islam, for example, and learning them upon evidence, not just because you are born Muslim or something else, but you ask, you say, what are the like reasons I'm holding to this faith? Are there reasonable reasons, or is it just I don't know, something else? And then if you start learning these things until you have this strong foundation where I'm 100% sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, I am 100% sure Islam is the right religion, then the secondary matters are not going to affect you because the law of non-contradiction. How? Because when you hear someone bringing a doubt about Islam, like saying like this doubt, it's an argument like trying to disprove Islam, you already have proven to yourselves with evidence that Islam is the right religion. So you know that this doubt can't be true because two opposites cannot be true at the same time. And then you can still like go on and look an answer for this doubts. I don't say that you shouldn't like answer on every doubt. I think that should be done as well, but you're like more protected if you have like the strong foundation. Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, I do want to jump on. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's just the problem is that when we're talking with such people who have those doubts, they would assume incorrectly that the secondary matters are primary matters. That's and they're not aware of that, and I think that's very common in the Muslim world, probably much more than it is among Muslims in the West, just because there is that focus on the what are the primary important issues, but because a lot of the culture does play a big part in what is important. So that's important, but how do we teach that to the masses?
Yeah,
especially
for example, sorry if I interrupted
you.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, because you remember me of a point. You said, how are we going to teach that? And this is like what I heard like Sheikh Abdullah Jari saying. He says, we have to change the methodology of teaching the aqidah, the belief, to the students. And what he said is, most people today, they start like, when they teach like Tawheed, monotheism, they start teaching that Allah is the only worthy of worship. But Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, like that Allah is there, that Allah exists, and He is the sustainer, and He is the king over everything, that's being neglected in the studies. It's like it's being jumped over. It's like point one is Tawheed, like Rububiyyah, like first that you accept that there is a God. This point is almost not discussed in like a lot of Aqidah lectures. Yeah. So Abdullah Jali said, exactly. Maybe it was because in another time there weren't like these doubts widespread, and people had no problem with Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, that Allah is the creator and sustainer of everything. But in our time, without a doubt, it's different. Like especially through social media, people are getting affected through all things like doubts on similar things. So we need to start from zero again, and not
I agree with that. And a lot of the discussions I've had in Turkey, both in English, the halaqah that we've had in Turkey, both in English and Turkish, there's always that focus on rububiyyah as opposed to just uluhiyyah. I mean, of course, we're not going to neglect either one, but the actual emphasis in even saying what it is, and like this is an aspect, like Allah is both ilah and He is Rabb. You have to understand both of those wings, so to speak, of it.
I've come back to get the stream back on track.
Yes.
Welcome.
We gotta hurry up. Come on. We gotta get this under 4 hours. Bismillah.
Subhanallah, it's nearly 4 hours already.
How's the light? How's the lighting? I actually lit a gas lamp. Get some light on my face. Is it better?
Mashallah, bro. Straight out of the.
Aren't you getting warm with the gas lighting?
Well, remember, I'm in eastern Turkey, just about 100 kilometers from the border of Iran. Your name is Farisi, so
mashallah.
You're from Iran?
Yeah, yes, originally, but I grew up in Germany.
Oh, okay, so I'm from the cold part of Turkey.
Mashallah.
Bismillah, Yusuf.
Okay. Where is it?
These are people of their own times. I wouldn't even talk about Muhammad if he was not the main figure of Islam imposed on us in our time. When I judge Muhammad, I am judging him as the presented perfect example for all humankind, because that's what Islam implies, that it brings the perfect morals for all humankind, for all times, and that these perfect morals are found in Muhammad's behavior. Yet in our time, slavery and child marriage are unacceptable. The real question would then be, why do I judge slavery and child marriage as wrong? Is it because of some divine command which we find in nature? It's not. Child marriage was quite normal in the royal courts of Europe and Asia over the last 2,000 years. Slavery was considered normal in Muslim and Christian.
No, it's not just over the last 2,000 years. It's just historically, since records began. It's like before 2,000 years ago, they weren't.
Societies, and it wasn't Christianity or Islam that got rid of slavery. Take child marriage. Through our advanced understanding of anthropology, medicine, and modern psychology, we learn that child marriage is incredibly harmful to a child. It damages a child psychologically, physically. It restricts the ultimate happiness, the ultimate well-being of a child. And children are us. We were children. They are our children. We love them.
But then this again falls down on the whole definition of child. Like when you look historically, when people were getting into these marriages, they didn't, like if you were, for example, someone who was a princess and you were married to a prince in Europe somewhere in the Middle Ages and you were young, it doesn't mean that you grew up necessarily as, this sort of completely messed up individual. They were still functioning members of society. They were still able to do things, to help run a country in some cases. Like it doesn't follow at all. Now, when you have this particular environment, and obviously when certain harms are caused upon them, then yes, you do get these consequences. But you look at Aisha radiallahu anhu, you don't see that at all. You see a very strong, independent woman. And they have this thing as well. It's like every hadith they read about Aisha radiallahu anhu, they think she's 6 years old. in all of them. And it's like, no. She grew, like she became older. She like years passed, and eventually she was older than 6. Many cases of the hadith, and she was, a very outspoken person. She grew up to be a very passionate woman, very capable, very strong.
Even after the death of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah, even after the death.
The biggest teacher, mashallah.
Exactly, and there's a whole video of proofs for prophethood through the eyes of Aisha radiallahu anha on Farid's channel. Check that out. It's like a 30-odd minute video. It's brilliant, and it goes into this in detail. That like even through her eyes, that there are proofs for the prophethood of the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like it's not the case that she was this like broken, demoralized human being. This, like he's framing it in this video here.
About this child marriage thing. I really, really liked what I think either I read it in the paper or in a stream of Brother Asadullah Ali, who was just left here. What he said, like our bodies like adapt to certain conditions, and because back then the conditions were different, and I think that you mentioned this even before I joined the stream. I was listening something similar to that. It's like because the conditions were different not long ago, even if you go 200 years back in time or even less, there were like different conditions to what we are living in now, and that people were getting sooner like going over the age of childhood sooner than it's happening now. And subhanAllah, one thing that Asadullah mentioned, that I even mention when I speak with people who bring up this child marriage argument, it's not really a child marriage because she was a woman, but they say it is. I would say like, and I heard that from Asadullah Ali, he said like, okay, if you had a time machine and you would go back in the time, what would you do? Would you force people to marry at 18? You would like destroy humanity would die out because of this, because people were like
from his own grounds. Because you got to keep in mind he's making reference to utility in his own moral system there, and he's saying certain things. They have utility to it. Now, if you've got, for example, the Persian Empire or the people who were like
living between 30 and 40 years, like they were, and imagine you tell them don't marry till you're 18, and then he is like. He marries, he's 18, he gets a child with 19, and when he is like 30 years old, he's always fearing death. His child is 10 years old, and if he dies, the 10-year-old boy has to grow up himself. And if you do this for a couple of generations, no human's gonna stay on Earth.
Not no humans. It's gonna your tribe, your community is gonna be wiped out, and the communities that didn't practice that, be that the Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, if you force it on humanity, like a couple hundred years ago, then you would eradicate humanity. So,
it's just like you can argue from utilitarian grounds historically. Now, obviously, you look at today, you've got the implementation of medicines and vaccines and this, that, and the other worldwide that increases the average age of people. People are not dying so young. You can say that maybe there are utilitarian grounds to sort of push it a little bit. Now, but this is different from saying that something is like explicitly, because this is another thing as well. Laws in Islam can be conditional. So pig, we say pig is haram, but the Quran makes it clear as well. If under certain conditions, it becomes halal for you. If you're starving, eat it.
Well, it's hard to even say, do we even have laws in the sense of a canonized, codified thing? That appeared during the Ottoman times. So what do you mean by laws? Even there's a lot of that leeway.
And you've got this. So Umar radiallahu anhu is another example where the penalty for theft, which is to chop off the hand of the thief, was relaxed during times of famine. So what happened when he relaxed that law because of the conditions that they were going through? He didn't say, "Oh, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was immoral because he used to practice this." No, he understood that changes in conditions change the output. Now, when it comes to, for example, the age of marriage, what they often do is they're looking at it through like this Western lens. So in the UK, for example, it's like 16 is the legal age. You go to somewhere else and it's like 21 is the legal age, and they're just throwing this random number out that's quite arbitrary. It's like, why that number? And how does this take into consideration the differences?
It's actually interesting. We call it the age of majority in English, right? So it's when you are when you are older than the the majority, when you take like the average number and things like that. So like that's what is that age of majority would technically change then if the general life expectancy were to
increase or decline. Yeah, if it goes up or down. Because say we hit that sort of transhumanism singularity, and the average age is increased to 200, 300, 400, 500 years, our whole conception of what youth is going to be completely transformed as well, especially if we can prolong the youthful state. So, for example, it's not just a case that the people are living for old and they spend the last 400 years like 100-year-old look, like really, really old. Like, but if they can sort of slow down the aging process, then this idea of child or youth is going to be transformed. And if that was to happen, where they could slow down the process for whatever reason via technology, and they could increase the life expectancy of the average person, and the age of majority was to increase, let's say that they change it to 50. There's a really good book called Under Plum Lake, where they can be really, really old, but they have this youthful state for many, many years. And it's a really good book. It's a fantasy one. One my mum recommended reading. But you have this civilization of people that live under the ocean, that have really long lives and really long youth. So the question is like, when you look at that, let's say they then consider the age of majority to be the age of 50. Would they then be justified in looking back at today's age and then saying, oh, look at these people. Look at them. They were getting married at the age of 25 and 30. How barbaric. It doesn't make no sense.
Well, shallow-minded people do that. That's what they do. So, would they be justified? According to their own shallow reasoning, yeah, they would be. But this goes back to the same thing. What is their basis for making that judgment? And it's the same discussion that we've had thus far. There's no objective standard to say, well, based on this.
And as well, in Islamic law, it's not that you have to marry people at a certain age. You don't have to get married at X, Y, Z. Like, if you wait till you're 18, you're not doing anything haram.
And
like,
I think another issue we should bring up with this is like, even the 18 line is problematic in some places and under certain circumstances, because with society like being as it is and the social media influence, you see like there are girls that are like they arrived at the 18 line, but if you see them and if you see how they behave, they behave like children. And
well, this is the thing as well. So within the Islamic law, they completely gloss over this, but there are circumstances where it would be impermissible to marry someone at the age of 16.
Yeah.
If they fall under certain categories. Why? Because the conditions are made to look at the person as an individual and who they have around them and the context that they sit in. Now, if a person isn't mature, if they haven't developed, if all of these things, and the harm principle is taken into consideration as well. If it is deemed that this is going to cause harm to that person, then it's not permissible. And that person could be 16. So now you have the system, which you're saying is justifying the marriage of a particular age group. And you completely miss that it's also going to make impermissible marrying someone at an older age. Why? Because it's more specific to the context, rather than just taking this arbitrary random number as the sort of the pinnacle of a decision. Like, that as if that person 1 minute before midnight somehow becomes something completely new 1 minute after midnight. And it's not like that at all. And the Sharia isn't just this arbitrary number. It's not that when you turn the age of 9 that someone can consummate marriage with you. That's not the law. That isn't the law. The law is there's much more to it than that. And this is just glossed over and brushed past. It's aggravating. But let's continue. Yeah, mashallah, you're going to be captain on track.
Yeah, come on, captain. Yeah, at least 15 minutes into the video. That's a goal.
We take care of them. They give us hope. They make us happy. They depend on us. And these children become adults like you and me. It is then normal that if we find out that something is incredibly harmful to children, that we take certain measures in order to outlaw and reject these harmful things.
There's no evidence that any of this applies to Aisha radiallahu anha. There's no evidence at all that she was a damaged and psychologically impaired person. It's quite the opposite.
It is very clear. Morals are man-made. We make them for a reason. Morals are not facts independent from the human mind, as David Wood claims. Not even like numbers. You might want to argue.
He said there was some objective morals at the beginning of the video. So he's back.
That murder is wrong and that this is a fact. But it is not really a fact.
Murder is wrong. This
in order to outlaw and reject these harmful things. It is very clear. Morals are man-made. We make them for a reason. Morals are not facts independent from the human mind, as David Wood claims. Not even like numbers. You might want to argue that murder is wrong and that this is a fact, but it is not really a fact in the truest sense. It is only a fact because you want it to be a fact, because humans almost universally find it wrong. Not because wrong is a quality of murder in and of itself. It is because we don't like murder and its consequences. If we say the earth exists, that is a fact.
Yes, he's bro. So he's now linking it. So he's talking meta-ethics now, and he's rooting the notion of good in the subject, in feeling. This is emotivism. So is he emotivist now? That's what he's just expressed there is emotivism.
He's a bit of everything, man.
Not even like numbers. You might want to argue.
He's expressed some form of moral objectivity at the beginning. He then moved to some form of subjectivism. He's made mention briefly to some sort of utilitarianism. He's also sort of referenced what was the other one? Error theory. He's a bit of like
nihilism.
He's got like a Heinz morality, like 77 varieties. Like I can't follow. What is it? I wish he could just
that murder is wrong and that this is a fact, but it is not really a fact in the truest sense. It is only a fact because you want it to be a fact, because humans almost universally find it wrong. Not because wrong is a quality of murder in and of itself. It is because we don't like murder and its consequences. If we say the earth exists, that is a fact. This is a mountain is a fact. We see the mountain, we give it a name, we point at it. The dog has legs is a fact. We see the legs and we call them legs. The dog has 4 legs is a fact. We make up numbers to describe the fact that the dog has so many legs, or so many depending on where you are in the world.
But how does that differ then from the moral claims? Because he's like, this is a mountain, that's a fact. So if I say this is a tree and I point at the mountain, that's not a fact. Why? Because there's some sort of consensus. So he's willing to say...
which is what language is. And I go ahead and finish that point, and then I'll jump in.
Well, it's just the case. It's like he's making it sound like he's making a complete shift here in terms of how language is used when it's describing things in the world and why... why saying that a physical object is a mountain because we've called it a mountain. Although there is an argument here to say, well, this is socially come to as well. Like, it's not a mountain in China.
It is. Exactly. Or even in his native language of Turkish, it's dağ. So, it's not a mountain. Say that to somebody in Turkey, say, what are you talking about? That's something else. So it is a compromise. That's all language is, just a compromise of meanings between people that change over time. The word murder itself has changed meaning over time. Kill, slay, thou shalt not kill.
The word bad in the council estate, we used to use it like it was good. If someone gave us some good food, if we went to a takeaway in England, on a council estate, and we got a nice pizza and we were enjoying the pizza and it was delicious. It was a tasty pizza. We said, this pizza is bad. You've made a bad pizza.
Well, I'll give you another one. The word silly used to mean pious. I'm going really far back now into English, but like silly used to mean pious in English, and now you know what it means. So it just means that compromise has changed over time, and it's just for such a long time. Nobody knows what even the original, and you could go back further, what I call the original might not even be the original meaning. So if it's all just a compromise, then, he says murder is bad. Well, murder by definition is bad killing. That's if you really want to go down that same logic that he was going at. What is murder? Bad killing. It's not just killing. It's inherent in the same compromise that you use to come up with what a mountain is.
And then it's a question of, what does the statement then, murder is wrong, is a fact, refer to exactly? What does it mean? Well, if saying murder is wrong is referencing this idea of killing someone without justification who's innocent, and that is descriptive in the same sense that this is a mountain, and that statement with a reference, something that's being referenced here. The case is the mountain. Here, the case is that these people think that murder is wrong. That's a fact.
Yeah.
It is a fact that in the UK, people think murder is wrong.
Well,
That's a
it's the
fact.
same, and it's the same linguistic compromise. I'll give you a good one. Thou shalt not kill. Kill. Here's the thing. Kill in the past had the meaning of what murder is today. We would use the word. We would have used, us native English speakers back then would have used the word slay to mean how we mean kill today. It's just like killing, slaying. But in the past, it had the meaning of murder. That's why it's actually thou shalt not kill. The kill there is actually an unjustified killing, what we would call murder today. That's why they retranslated the Ten Commandments into what we have, so that it's that compromise has changed in terms of meaning. So it's just convoluted. He's contradicting himself. He doesn't have a basic language.
Can you finish the video, Yusuf? You think without pausing?
Let's see.
Water is wet is a fact. We observe what happens when water touches a surface, and we call
That's
that
not
wet.
a fact.
Killing
Sorry.
in a life is a fact. The act of killing results in the death of somebody. Killing is wrong is not a fact. The wrongness of killing is not something that naturally exists independent from our mind, which we then merely need to learn and point at. The wrongness of killing is something that we humans decide and agree upon. It depends on us. If nobody judged killing as
So this again is like making it say moral non-realism. It's something being considered wrong depends on us. How is this not related to being subjective in some sense?
wrong, then killing would be nothing else but simply the ending of a life. We evaluate it and judge it as wrong due to its undesirable consequences. Consequences that we find undesirable because they threaten us. They prevent our...
So then how was it that he was able to say at the beginning that certain things can be considered objective? Like...
peace. They increase our suffering. They make our societies unlivable. I mean, mostly we don't even say killing is wrong. We say murder is wrong because we decide what kind of killing is justified and what kind of killing is wrong. What we call wrong here is merely an expression of our attitude, of our feelings about murder, not something that is independent, not a fact. If I ask David or the average religious person why murder is wrong, then they will either tell me that it is wrong because God says so, which would be a very absurd answer, or they will begin to explain to me...
But it's not really an absurd answer, because if God does exist, God is all-knowing and God is all-wise, then obviously like that statement in and of itself isn't justified independently necessarily, but you can add other premises to it and say, well, God said so. Oh, well, why do you believe what God says? Because I have good reasons to believe that God exists, and I have good reasons to believe that God is just, that God is wise,
that He is the source of all good.
Yeah, and so if these things are true, then He's a good place to go to try to get answers to these questions if He exists. So then you've got to get into the question, and obviously we're 4 hours into it. I'm not going to start this now, but you get into the whole apologetics about whether or not God exists, about whether or not God is one, about whether or not the Quran and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam
But just to add something, like, you know what I said earlier about learning the fundamentals? If you learn the fundamentals, you can, like, even though if you may not know about how to refute these false moral concepts he's bringing, you can just argue with the basics you have. If you know how to argue for God's existence, you can just say, I base my morality on God. Why do you believe in God? Because of this and this and this and this.
But so it always ends up happening. It always ends up falling back on the discussion about whether or not God exists. And then if God does exist, then you can build on that. And it's why it's always...
That's another point, is showing the importance of learning the basics, the fundamentals.
And often as well, because sometimes, like he did in the discussion on TAP, they'll insist on starting at a later step. But then they always end up taking you back to the beginning anyway. So like, even if you do show to them that you can be justified, for example, in believing that certain morality could come from God, then it's always like, well, how do you prove God's existence? It's like, well, that's why we wanted to start with this. And if, for example, they want to say, well, how do you prove the necessary existence is the God of Islam? Say if you even show that if there is a necessary existence, that the God of Islam could be a good candidate for that, then they're like, oh, well, you haven't even proved that there can be a necessary existence yet. And so then it's like, you've got to go back there anyway. It's like, well, can we not just go from step one and build from that rather than going in this whole higgledy-piggledy route anyway? Because it's just waste time. But
well, it's like, I recently watched your Aaron Ra debate, and it's like the brother said after Aaron Ra left the stream, they said, like, if the atheist sense that you want to move to God through this necessary being, then they try to block it from the beginning. Like, they try to like disagree with it, and subhanallah. But
yeah, so no matter where you start, they'll complain that you didn't go to a different step first.
Yeah.
So if you start from step 1, which is to prove a necessary existence, they'll say, "Oh, but then they're just trying to say." But then they make this jump from that to the to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So no, we're not doing that. We're doing step 1. What you're talking about is step 3. We get there.
They're
first
assuming
we go step 1.
what we do.
Yeah. First we do step 1, then we do step 2, then we do step 3, and you can make these inferences from one to the other. But if you start at step 1, they complain you just jumped to step 3, even though you've not even stated step 3 as a conclusion yet. And if you start at step 3, they complain you're not justifying step 1 and 2. And so it's like, you can't win. Obviously, this isn't everyone, but it's very frustrating when they do levy these. But let's try to get to the end of this.
Why murder is wrong and why God forbids it. But their explanation to why murder is wrong will be completely about earthly things, about secular, societal, natural reasons, which make God completely obsolete. If murder is clearly wrong for logical, functional, natural reasons, then where exactly is God in this? If we find murder wrong because it is destructive, it harms our nature.
Because sometimes, in order to make rational decisions, you need all of the information. We are limited in knowledge. We don't have all the information. And so it makes sense that if you do have access to someone who does have the knowledge, to refer the decision to them. We do this all the time. If there is someone in our society who is considered an authority because he has the knowledge, he has the expertise, we always prefer, well, not always, in some cases, especially today, but the rational thing would be, if you're talking about medicine, you refer to the experts that have the knowledge with regards to medicine. Now, obviously, human beings are limited in terms of their knowledge. If you can show that a God exists and you can show that he's knowledgeable, that he's wise, that he's powerful, it makes sense to refer the decision to him. It's not about whether or not this is independent of him or not. Because even if you're talking about the reasons themselves could be the contents of his knowledge. And so you're not, even by making reference to the reasons, you're not necessarily referring to something outside of his essence. By saying that it's God, we say that God, a part of his essence is that he is knowledgeable, that he is wise, that he is just. And this is a part of his essence. These aren't things abstract, floating outside of him. He's one. He's not...
I think a lot of people have a problem with the fact that they can't grasp God's wisdom. So because they can't understand it, they're like, just go like on a rampage.
Yeah. Or they make this assumption that because, like, if God has done something with reason, like he says in the Quran, don't think that I made you without reason. If God has done something for reason, that somehow that means that the reasons themselves necessarily exist outside of God, which is just strange, because now you're talking about, well, what do you mean? How does a reason exist outside of, like, he's making reference here to morality, which is funny because he's saying that morality can only be found as a product of the human mind. It's just us coming up with things. But then somehow when he starts talking about God, he's talking about the reasons and the justifications. These reasons and justifications are somehow outside of God, and what they have some sort of mind-independent existence, that they are objective. And if these reasons are objective, then like. And that's not even the Islamic notion. We don't say that Allah, that we don't need Allah to come to these conclusions, and that this knowledge and this wisdom, all of it, as everything, is that he is the source of it. All these things come from him. So it's SubhanAllah, it gets a bit frustrating.
And that we can find this by simple reasoning. Then why would we argue that this is a command that comes from God? If murder is naturally wrong, which is why God forbids it, then does that mean that it is wrong?
Yeah, this is the typical Euthyphro dilemma.
Regardless of God, which would mean that morals are independent from God, outside of God, or even that God adopts morals. It is all absurd. The only way out is very simple. Murder is considered wrong because it clashes with the human will to live. It eliminates mutual trust. It is dysfunctional and destructive to societies, which is why every society universally.
Well, but this is the thing. It goes back to semantics again. It depends on what you mean by murder again. And it depends on what you mean by societies. Because the idea
of your definition of harm.
Yeah. And the will to live. Well, what if there isn't a will to live?
I mean, there's just so many holes.
Yeah, there's so many problems with this.
Universally condemns it and bans it. It is purely functional. God is nowhere in this. There's so much more to say, such as, for example, the role that empathy and science play in morality, but I will leave that to the rebuttals. David's fault is that he assumes, as is so common, that I must account for some perfect morality, for independent, objective moral values and obligations that are out there, and that there must be something that we are accountable to, which is why we have moral obligations. This expectation clouds David's judgment. The idea that humans make their own reasons, that they don't have a supernatural force which they are responsible to, the idea that humans don't have a natural obligation to abide by certain moral commands, and that humans do come up with very bad ideas, with atrocities, with cruelties, is scary, even to David. It seems depressing and disturbing, and looks like it must be wrong at first. But simply appealing to God when there is no reason to invoke God, and placing God into that perceived gap, will not solve the problem. It will only cover the problem up. I personally simply prefer to accept human nature as it is, to embrace our existence, to give up on fantasies and expectations of perfection, not to be scared of the fact that I can do whatever I want, and to recognize that I have enough good reasons to be good, that it's good to be what we call good, and that being bad is not a great idea and doesn't make for a good life. But that's just me. David will want to push me on that anyway. It'll be fun. Now it's time for David Wood to get back with his rebuttal. Not that there is much hope. Thanks everybody, and see you soon. David, I will be waiting for your response. Hurry up.
Yeah, I'm going to call it right now.
Finally.
Yeah,
Did he just drink David Wood's tears?
yeah, I think he probably did. But
Oh,
yeah,
God.
to me, he's
Well,
not even really clear what he
why don't we get a drink? Why don't we start drinking his tears of anxiety?
Yeah. That's I think David Wood as well was when he was having that debate, he had a cup that said Muslim tears on it as well. So
Liberal tears.
Liberal, was it liberal tears?
No, I don't know. That's another cup that people have. But.
Yeah, so I don't know. But so we're nearly finished with that video. Right, I promise, smoking. We're gonna watch all of it to the end.
So
I pause it.
Yeah, no clicking. If you click, you're going to be in trouble.
Okay.
No pausing, okay?
No pausing, okay.
Bismillah. Let's finish it. You can.
Everything stopped for a bit, and I just thought everything through, and I laid back, I laid down, and just looked up to the ceiling, and I thought to myself, you have seen everything. You have studied everything over the last years. You can do it again. But
the arrogant, sorry, bro. He said he studied everything. He said he studied everything over the past years.
From what I have seen so far, it just doesn't make sense. And if I'm wrong, then God forgive me. But I'm not a Muslim anymore. Then I was done with it. Until that moment, everything that made sense to me was Islam. Allah was with me all the time, and Allah was the reason why we are alive. Suddenly that was gone. I thought about it day and night. I was suddenly desperate, and I felt lonely. I felt useless. I felt like I have no purpose anymore. But I studied it day and night, and I found more and more reason why Islam is wrong. One day I came home from work, and I saw this show on TV where they were discussing about near-death experiences and about supernatural explanations and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with what I believed in, but it triggered something. I was so desperate, so devastated, and after watching that show, I felt even more depressed. I felt awful, and I felt like there was no purpose anymore. So I went to my room and moved to my window, and I lived in like the 6th floor. I was about to commit suicide. I almost did it, but something held me back, and I didn't do it. I thought, okay, here's the deal: do something in life. Care about yourself from now on. Care about people from now on. Care about the world. Care about all the problems that we have. Focus more on yourself and on everything.
He's acting like this, like you can't do this as a Muslim.
Well, he's also asking. There's some massive altruism going out there. I don't see him as altruistic at all. I mean, are his videos? Do they exude altruism when you watch them? Do you get that? Do you get that I love humanity vibe from him when you watch anything?
No, not at all.
That's just a bunch of.
Its work is mostly, I don't even know.
Everything that is actually real and everything that you can see. And I started to follow atheist pages and stuff like that on Instagram and on social media. And I had an exchange of messages with one of those pages that I used to follow. We started to know each other more and more, and we started being more and more interested in each other. So
yeah, so now he's just talking about his now he ends up getting married. So yeah, so to summarize, his reasons that he gave were that something bad and unfortunate happened to someone he cared for.
Emotional reason.
The cult leader person that he said, or the sex leader, there was a bit of gossip he heard about him that he may have done something bad, although it was never substantiated with any evidence. Or I don't even know who it was. Maybe he was guilty, maybe he wasn't. But what he's going off is basically, yeah, he heard a bit of gossip from some guy he doesn't know that he bumped into that mentioned it to him and didn't give him any evidence. Just said, source, dude, trust me, bro. He read something about wife beating in the Quran, and he assumes, I guess, that means you can just lay the smack down and start throwing choke slams and pile drivers left, right, and center. And didn't bother to, yeah, Mortal Kombat, and it didn't bother to even check what the ulama have said about this, and with references to evidences such as the hadith that came from the wives of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Or I just want to bring this up. or the fact that actually the Quran it has a limiting role on the amount of physical force that can be used by men, but there's no limiting role against the amount of force that women can use against men.
Yeah, so there's no equality in that sense. But
I mean, it's an interesting point. It's actually limiting. There's no limit put on women for that, and they can, if they hit you 1,000 times with a frying pan,
face.
yeah, well, the most you can do is like, okay.
Yeah. So, but the point is that was another one of his reasons. Even though there's really easy answers to come to, provided from by Quran and Sunnah. The other one was the sun setting into the muddy pool, which is very easily just understood as a phenomenological description done every day. We made reference to the idea of the sunset. Technically, the sun is
ridiculous.
Really it's a phenomenological description.
It has been so much covered in any language. If you search for it, like you find the explanation right away. And I think a lot of people, they don't even need an explanation. If they just read the verse,
I went over that several times. I first heard that from him.
I never had a problem.
And I was like,
that,
what? And then I looked over it. I was like, why would you jump to that as a necessary conclusion?
When I heard it the first time, like that this is being used in argument against Islam, like I was like, subhanallah, how can people think like that? Yeah.
Allahu Alam, bro. But yeah, and so those were like, what were the reasons? Were there slavery? But then, like, we've seen the video where he's like, you can't really make a criticism about slavery against them because it's just about what you feel.
He said throughout history, it's like historically justified why it existed.
He's used those very words. It's historically justified.
It's like it's no.
So
would he have a problem visiting the pyramids built with slave labor? Probably not. Now, the things that he considers
moving to America, which is built on the back of slavery.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so if you want to be fully consistent with your empathetic and altruistic, whatever you are, then you probably should be fully consistent. You can't praise the pyramids. You can't praise American society. You can't praise much of anything because it's all built on slavery.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that the justify. I'm saying he's just not consistent with where the logical conclusion of his stances should take him.
Oh, subhanAllah. So I did. I couldn't help it, and I did go away and check out what he said. And
I did as well.
Word for word, bro. Exactly what was.
Yeah.
There you go.
He made a couple of.
This is typical of Muslim apologists.
Yeah.
So they refuse to respond to me. No, this is the thing. We have responded to him. We have had conversations with him. I've tried to speak with him. And like, I just get infuriated, and I can just feel myself just getting annoyed having a conversation with him. And like, we've been civil with him in the past. He then accused us of dishonesty, and it's just, I don't see the point in having these talks. And the way he talks is like, the way we deal with him is sort of a good example of how we deal with non-Muslims, and it's not. There's like, I don't know how many examples of how many like good conversations we've had with people. They refuse to respond to me, reject one-on-one debate, and reject discussions. But then 6 of them come together just to talk about me. It's hilarious. What a muppet. Honestly, it's infuriating. Like, we've never spoke before. Like, we've never had chats. Like, we've never, even with other non-Muslims, like, there's not pure evidence out there of people having one-on-one debates. Muslim versus non-Muslim.
How long was his discussion with Daniel Hakikachu?
I don't know. It was like 4 hours. Like, exactly. He's had one-on-one discussions with Muslim apologists.
Yeah.
So
that's just a blatant lie.
Yeah.
Wait, I just got counted in that. So I even have like six people in this little community post. You see that? But.
Yeah. But yeah, let him.
You should thank him for the shout out.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm hoping, inshallah,
next time you have to hold a sign up with your gaming channel, so you get.
Oh yeah. Pondering games.
But you will get some toxic gamers. Better not, Akhi. They will join and ruin your game.
That's what gaming is, bro, isn't it? It's just toxicity, just shouting at people. I don't know. There was this channel that I watched not long ago. This guy used to just do friendly fire and that.
Subhanallah.
I know. Subhanallah. Just to wind his team. Yeah, it happens. It happens. The gaming community can be quite toxic anyway.
Yeah,
So
I
come.
heard something of that
Ponder's
on Twitter
gaming.
today. You mentioned it on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. It happens.
All right.
It happens.
Yusuf, do you want to finish the video? Just no pausing, right? Can we do it?
No, we're not watching the rest of that. It's just
All
him
right,
talking about how he ends up getting married.
His love story.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's already apostated by this point, so he's run out of description.
And how he was going to dedicate his entire life to helping humanity.
I know. We'll see how that goes.
That's just
Like
that's
collecting Patreon money.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Not that video. The one you were watching originally.
What?
The Farid ones. The one that Farid had sent. Maybe you mean. Wasn't that
If
finished?
you're-
Well,
if
there was
you're
two.
done-
There was the one on morality. We finished that one, and then we
Okay,
went back
okay.
to that one, and then we got to the end, and then he started talking about how he ended up getting married. But
All
it's
right.
a bit superfluous. But anyway, guys, we're gonna leave it there. 4.5 hour mark.
Yeah, I think
I'm
we
absolutely
exceeded
gonna
our daily dosage.
I know. We did that about 2.5 hours ago.
Alhamdulillah.
But anyway, I just wanted to get to the end of it.
Well, Alhamdulillah, it was nice being here with you, brothers.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair to everyone who joined. It was an unexpected surprise with the gang. It was nice of you all to join us.
Yeah, good, exactly. I haven't met Smoking Tire before.
Nice to meet you, brother. Nice to meet you.
Smoking Tie is a frequent with us when we do our little worm battles and that.
Yeah,
We have a game of worms. So if either of you brothers, I don't think Zakaria, you've played worms with us yet. So
No.
Did you ever play it?
No. I used to play Age of Empires 2 when I was a kid.
Okay. Worms is the one where you got the little worms and you're shooting each other and you.
Would you be opening Yusuf to playing a match of worms with AP sometime?
That'd be horrible. That would completely ruin the game of worms. It's probably not.
Yeah.
I'll continue to play with the people I enjoy speaking to.
Irfan, what part of Iran is your family from?
They're from the capital, Tehran.
Tehran. Okay. I've been there.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it there for today, brothers and sisters. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to everyone who's joined and everyone who's been involved in the comments. And we'll see you again soon, inshallah. But other than that, we'll end this 4.5 hour stream. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.